Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. You can see I have a bit of an interesting setup today, and I'm feeling like I'm on the Home Shopping Network or something, a little bit like I'm in an infomercial. So, we do have an interesting topic of discussion in just a moment, but first, I wanted to say congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks for winning Super Bowl 60. As I record this, it is Monday, February 9th, 2026. It's the day after the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the game itself was a little lackluster. It took quite a while for the Patriots to actually score. Seattle hit the ground running, literally, and the game itself wasn't really anything to write home about. But I did really enjoy the halftime show, which everybody who's watching this is probably familiar with the controversy related to that. Great job, Bad Bunny. I'm not super familiar with his work, but I will be definitely listening to more of his songs as we move forward because it was a lot of fun. It was a great halftime show. And he included people like Lady Gaga and Ricky Martin, and Pedro Pascal was there. So it was a little bit of a who's who of pop culture, and great message too, that love is stronger than hate and we all need to be together. But just wanted to again say my congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks on your Super Bowl win. I'm sure today is a very exciting day for all of you, and that's kind of a good segue into my discussion for the day, because for a period of time, I'm not sure if it's something that continues today, but people would say, "Oh, you just won the big game. What are you going to do now?" And then the inevitable answer would be going to Disney. So if the Seahawks are planning a trip to Disneyland or Disney World, I hope you have a great time. I obviously am a Disney fan. I don't necessarily consider myself a Disney adult. I'm not currently planning any trips to Disney anytime in the future, but before we really get into the meat of this discussion, let me give you a little bit background with my Disney history. So I grew up in California. My very earliest years were spent in San Diego. This was the 1960s, so things were not quite as crowded as they are now. I actually grew up, my first 4 years, I believe, were spent living in a motel because my grandparents either managed or owned the motel. So I can show you a picture here of my mom, my grandmother, and I by the swimming pool of the motel. And also this postcard that I found that is the exact motel that I lived in. It was called the Trail Lodge, I believe, which is different from a travel lodge. It was a separate, I don't know, maybe it was a one-off motel and not a chain. But since we lived in San Diego, we would often go up to Anaheim to the north to go to Disneyland. So here I will show you a photo of me with my mom and her parents during one of our trips to Disneyland. We are sitting in front of It's a Small World, and much later as an adult, it was very exciting for me to actually revisit It's a Small World with my own grandchildren. So that's how much of a Disney fan I've been. I spent a lot of my childhood visiting Disneyland maybe once or twice a year, and I still have some of the old ticket books. I have some other old things that I may show you in a later video, but for right now, the reason I have these pulled out is related to my discussion of things during my life as a writer. And I have showed you recently my typewriter, which seems to be very popular. So I'm hoping this one will be equally popular because it's somewhat related to my early writing career, you might say, even though I wasn't really earning anything as a writer. But as a stay-at-home mom, 3 small kids, and my typewriter, and eventually an Apple IIc Plus computer, I found it hard to have a decent amount of time to sit down and do some writing. So once our family got a VCR, we started collecting Disney movies because both my husband and myself grew up on Disney movies. I think he may have, I know I did for sure, watch The Wonderful World of Disney every Sunday night, usually when I was visiting my grandparents. And so I had seen a lot of these movies on TV, but to be able to watch them at home was really exciting. And when I say at home, it's like whenever I wanted, kind of an on-demand situation versus having to wait for them to air on maybe The Wonderful World of Disney. Or eventually, when we started to get cable, we had the Disney Channel, and they would sometimes show these movies. But you can see these are original in their clamshell cases. They're pretty dirty from being in storage. They're dusty. I do have them stored in a place that's away from light, and the temperature is fairly well regulated, excuse me. So as an archivist, I know that's important for the preservation of things like video cassettes, because temperature fluctuations can really harm these over the long run. And I am not 100% sure they're still good. They should be. But if anyone has not ever used a video cassette, this is the part that you would pop into the VCR. There is a little arrow that shows you the direction it should go, so it would go in this way. And the end of the case, once you put it into the VCR, will pop open, so you can see the video itself. So, ooh, excuse me, that startled me. So just looking at the tape like this, it doesn't appear to be at all warped, and it does look pretty good. It's not discolored or anything. So from an archival point of view, I think these have been well stored. They have been around for quite some time. I think we may have bought most of these in the 1990s. So they're about 30 years old. We no longer, excuse me, we no longer have a VCR, so I haven't played them for a very long time. But since legacy media seems to be coming back into style, I may at some point actually try these out and see if they're still working. But then back to the original topic was that stay-at-home mom trying to write, had 3 small kids. They would sometimes play together nicely, but inevitably they would get bored. At one point, I had 3 small kids, 5 and under. So that was probably the roughest time, because as the kids started getting older and going to school and I went back to work, we had new challenges, but it wasn't so much focused time trying to keep the kids amused, basically. So one of the things I would do, at one point we lived in an apartment that did have a swimming pool and a nice playground, so I would take them out to play. We would go swimming, we'd have lunch, and then maybe in the afternoon we'd pop in a video. So my kids grew up on this. And as a side note, my oldest, at that point, we had no TV or VCR or anything really. VCR came into popularity in the late 1980s. She was born in the early 1980s. So when we finally got a TV and very basic cable, we got MTV. And MTV was a great babysitter because those early videos were so eye-catching for a little one. And I'm not saying I parked her in front of the TV all the time, but I would do it for periods of time when she wasn't napping or something, if she was a little fussy and I couldn't calm her down. And that way, if she was focused on watching videos, I could do a little bit of writing at that point on my typewriter. And she watched enough of Michael Jackson's Thriller as a toddler to actually be able to do some of the dance moves. I really wish I had that recorded somewhere, but I definitely have it up here. So she was an MTV baby, but as she aged and had siblings, we moved into the Disney video era. And while the kids did watch a lot of these movies, and some of the movies have a lot of songs, like, for example, The Jungle Book, look for those bare necessities, and they would sing along to the movies. Now, this is really where the idea for today's video comes into play. This morning I was sitting in the kitchen with JT. We were having breakfast, and my seat faces a window that has a little tree outside, and that's where I have my bird feeder. So I was watching the birds, and JT made a comment that started me singing. Um, and excuse me, I'm not a trained singer. I've talked about how I decided not to join choir because I wasn't a soprano. But the song that came to mind was, "Let's all sing like the birdies sing, tweet, 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 tweet. Let's all sing like the birdies sing, sweet, 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 sweet. Let's all warble like nightingales, give yourself a treat," etc., etc. Now, I have not sung that song for many, many years. And as an older person, this is not uncommon. It's easier to remember things that I learned earlier in life. And, that's the short-term memory, forget it. Ask me where my car keys are if I haven't put them in my purse, and I have no idea. But I can remember the lyrics to a song that I probably learned as a very small child because my memory was refreshed when Disney came out with something called the sing-alongs. Now, I had a lot of sing-alongs on VHS as far as I remember. I don't seem to have them anymore. This DVD here is actually, I believe, a 50th anniversary special edition, and it's themed for It's a Small World. I actually have never even opened this, so I probably might do that at some point and listen to it. So my eyes aren't great. Let me tell you what's on this sing-along. Whistle While You Work, Step in Time from Mary Poppins, Zippity Doo-Dah, It's a Small World from The Ride, of course, Grim Grinning Ghosts from The Haunted Mansion, When You Wish Upon a Star, which is classic Disney. So when these started coming out, we actually bought pretty much all of them, I think. And we transitioned from I kind of interspersed watching movies with these sing-alongs. Now, some people might say that parking your kids in front of the TV is not a great idea, and I agree, but it normally wasn't for a long period of time. They would be playing, they'd usually have their toys, and they'd be talking to each other, so they weren't just staring at the TV. It became background noise as they became more and more familiar with the movies. And, and then occasionally they would break into song, or if they put in a sing-along, which I believe these normally run about a half an hour or so, they would definitely be singing and dancing to the music. So this would give me the opportunity to write. And normally I would be sitting nearby because we lived in a small place. There wasn't a lot of room. So I might be over on the kitchen table or on my little desk while they were watching TV and singing along. So I would be singing along with them in the background while I was trying to do some writing. So definitely something that brought back fond memories. It's interesting how the smallest little thing, like seeing a bird out the window and remembering the song, can spur a memory of something that you'd completely forgotten you had. And these videos are, I think some people might consider them collectibles now, because while they are movies from, I know Mary Poppins was maybe 62, 63. It was about the time I was born. Some of the movies are older than I am, and they were released in the 1980s and 1990s, specifically on video, before they transitioned to DVDs and then Blu-rays, and then, of course, streaming, and then you do downloads. But I think legacy media is definitely coming back into favor, because having a digital copy of something doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have it forever. And we've learned that when it comes to things like Kindle books, I guess they can occasionally just disappear. So I'm happy that I've kept these. My grandkids, I don't know, they've probably seen at least some, if not all of the movies, but not on video cassette. I'm pretty sure nobody in my family currently has a VCR. I do know that one of my kids and one of my grandkids both have recently gotten turntables and are playing vinyl records again. And I remember back in the day, I can show you at another time. I actually have 45s, vinyl 45s of Disney songs that I would listen to growing up, which I guess would have been my version of the Disney sing-along. Without the visuals, I would have to imagine what was going on. So I just thought I'd share this with you today because it did bring back some fond memories. I do know that some people are very big fans of Disney, some people not so much. It has become very corporate, and I still love Disney, but I really love more of the classic era of Disney. As I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, I think my dad actually went to Disneyland, not on opening day, but the year Disneyland opened. He was a teenager at the time, and he's mentioned being there, I think, in the first year or two of it opening. So he has fond memories of Disney from his teens and young adulthood. Like I said, I grew up there. Our kids didn't go to Disneyland in California when they were very small, but we lived in Japan for a short period of time outside of Tokyo. So their early Disney experiences with theme parks were actually at Tokyo Disneyland. And we were there, was for the 5th anniversary of Tokyo Disneyland. And I have some things related to that I can show you at another time as well, if anybody is interested. I do have a lot of Disney things kind of floating around the house because, as I said, Disney's been a large part of my life for my entire life, and it's great that I still have these and I can pass these on someday, that hopefully maybe the grandkids with their kids, since one of my grandkids is a teenager, who knows when I'll have great grandkids, not in a hurry, but maybe they'll be able to share these with their kids at some point. And it's fun to have legacy items like these to pass along. And as long as I maintain them and keep them in a good temperature, which is a hint I will give anybody who is trying to preserve something like video cassette recordings. Now, CDs and DVDs are different because temperature does affect them, but over time, there's an optical system that plays those that is a little bit different, I think, than film or video cassette, that it just kind of breaks down over time. So it is good to keep them from getting overheated specifically so they don't warp. But these, I think, keeping them in a reasonable temperature so it doesn't fluctuate too much, not too humid, not too dry, because then they become brittle and crack, and out of light is best for them. So as long as they still look as good as they do, they can still be played. And you have to be careful, of course, because if you have a machine with issues, it could eat your tape. So you don't want that to happen. And that was a little archival background. Just a taste of the archives to flavor our Disney discussion. I thank you for joining me today. I'm interested to know, if you are a Disney fan, what would be your favorite Disney movie? I've got a lot of the classics here. I will say that Disney's Mary Poppins is one of my favorites, the classic 1960s version. I have seen the more modern version and I did enjoy it, but I am a huge Julie Andrews fan, and actually Julie Andrews being in The Princess Diaries, I really enjoyed that movie along with Anne Hathaway. That played into the romance that JT and I co-wrote, From Tundra to Tiara, because we threw in a reluctant royal into that story that was a little bit of an homage to The Princess Diaries. So longtime Julie Andrews fans and longtime Disney fan here. So what would be your favorite movie? Do you have any old video cassettes floating around? And have you been to Disneyland, Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, Euro Disney, or Paris Disneyland, or any of the other Disneys? I'd be very interested to know, because it's always fun talking about shared experiences. Even though we may not have done it together, we may have had similar experiences. So thank you for joining me on this little trip down memory lane as I revisit some of the videos that I have stored away, and their relationship to my writing life and how I brought up my kids. And if you ever come across a sing-along video anywhere, I don't know if you can find them on streaming or for digital download. But if you do have small kids, they're fun to have around because the kids will just have a wonderful time singing and dancing to them. It's so much fun. So I do recommend them if you can find them. Thank you again for joining me today. I hope this is a wonderful start to your week. We got it off to a fun start here at least. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.